soft blue eyes of my youngest child follow me around the kitchen, watching me as I work. I am my own mother's youngest child, and I've been watching her for more than 4 decades now. Watching mother. Isn't that what children do first and best? I watched my mother laugh. In September 1992, after blowing out the candles on her 80th birthday cake, she joked with her grandchildren, "Good thing I don't have false teeth, I might lose them doing this." Adapt. Some mothers draw a tight, possessive circle around their families for fear of losing their love. Not mine. She draws a bigger circle to include our friends and spouses. Believe. What was the golden thread that kept the fabric of her days from unraveling? She said, "It was the presence of God in my life." Enjoy. She lets a new idea, a chickadee at the feeder, a game of bridge with friends, or a grandchild's hug brighten her day. The watching blue eyes of my youngest child draw me. I pick her up and hold her close. The best part about that being printed in the magazine was in the small town where my mom lives. People called her on the phone and stopped her on the street to tell her how much they liked that description. And from my perspective, mission accomplished. I thought, why wait till a funeral to honor people with our words? My mother lived an interesting life. She lived through years of my father's alcoholism, and then a few short years of his sobriety before he died of a heart attack. She became a single mom, raising 4 kids, including my brother with autism, taught school full-time, and became the joyful, devoted grandmother of 11 grandchildren. On the painting of her life, those bright and victorious strokes of color, I didn't know would soon be darkened by some dark strokes of dementia. When she was in her 80s, she began to lose her memory. And when she was still aware of this process, she said to me one day, "You know, I'm so forgetful, life is twice as fun. I read a new book and I read it again later and it's new all over. Your sister calls me at noon to say she's coming at 5 o'clock to take me out for supper. I'm so surprised by that midnight call, and then I'm surprised at 5 when she comes." Well, my mom lived on her own for a while there still, and my sister decided to get her Meals on Wheels, which was a great idea, except sometimes the food would come and she'd forget to eat it. She was still doing some of her cooking, and after, when we cleaned out her house, we discovered a lot of pots and pans with very blackened bottoms. My sister arranged all her pills and medications in one of those day minder kind of deals, and one day arrived in my mom's kitchen to find that Mom had dumped them all into a bowl and was just randomly stirring them. One week, in the middle of the morning, I decided to call my mom. This was kind of out of our usual schedule, but I just felt curious about what her day was doing. "Hi, Mom. What you doing?" "Oh, dear, I'm having a great time. I'm just in the basement with this nice man who came to the door wanting to see if I have any antiques for sale." I was horrified. I didn't want to shock her or make her panic. So I said, "Mom, why don't you just hang up quickly and call me when you're done?" So she did, and I called the neighbor across the street and asked Glenn to go and be with Mom and find out what was happening with the dealer in the basement. And he stayed until the guy bought some little vase for $35 and left his business card. My husband lost no time calling that number with a few questions, such as, "Did you get a permit from town hall to solicit door to door?" Well, no, he hadn't. "And how, in a town where you know no one, did you decide to call on my mother-in-law?" And he said, "Oh, well, I do this all the time. I go to small towns and I drive around and I observe homes, and if I see seniors who might be living on their own and have some antiques, then I go on to their doors. But if I see a house that has lots of kids and toys out front, I don't bother going there." Needless to say, we were not happy with either one of those answers, and the fellow volunteered to sell the vase back to my mom. I said, don't bother. It's not the vase, and I don't want you near her house. You can keep it. The issue is my mother's vulnerability. Well, not all the issues were serious. Mom developed the habit of repeating questions until she received an answer that made perfect sense to her. She was chatting with my teenage son, and she said, Eric, how many girlfriends do you have? Well, none right now, Grandma. A minute later. Eric, how many girlfriends do you have? None, Grandma. Finally, I leaned in and said, just give her a number. She won't stop asking. So the next time, he said, I have 10. And she said, a former teacher. She said, oh, that's great. You wouldn't want to go to school just for the academics. He took note of that, for sure. Well, Mom lived her final years in a nursing home. One day, my husband drove to visit her. And they carried on a rather polite, distant conversation, and he realized she had no idea who he was. Finally, she said, and it was nice of you to visit me today. Where do you live? Oh, I live in Guelph. Oh, my daughter, Linda Neff, lives in Guelph. Do you know her? He said, well, yeah, she's my wife. Oh, well, she said, that makes you my son-in-law. I guess I can stop being polite. Well, polite is what I tried to be when she called me at 3 o'clock in the morning from that nursing home. It was about a 95-minute drive south of here. Hi, dear, just thought I'd give you a call. Not much going on here. Mom, I think there's not much going on because it's the middle of the night. No, really? Yes, Mom, what's your roommate doing right now? Why, her light's out and she's sleeping. Sleeping, that's what I wanted to be doing. Then I became the parent. Mom, I think you should go back to bed and get some rest. It really is 3 in the morning. No, dear, it's not 3 in the morning. You and I live in different time zones. Well, you soon learn that there are time zones and there are mind zones. My mom did not live long enough to experience the computer-based 24/7 information overload that we have. It makes me feel that my mental function will someday be reduced to 4 words. Let me Google that. But in the tsunami, I feel, of information that rushes across the landscape of my mind some days, I just want to know what's really important, and I want to remember the real people in my life. And the brush strokes that are painted on a life take more than the click of a mouse to remember. And I took time to interview friends and relatives and get their stories about my mom and the painting of her life. Our daughter Sarah remembers that when she was little, my mom would crouch down, spread out her arms, and say, Grandma loves you this much. And Sarah would stick out her little hands and say, I love you too, Grandma, this much. And you could see Sarah stretching, pushing her arms, hoping she would grow a little faster so that someday she could show her love for Grandma more. I thought of this when my mother passed away at age 94. She may have lost her memory, but our memories of her were not lost. When Mom died, Sarah had just graduated from university. If you had been with us on that beautiful summer morning by the graveside, you would have felt not just the warmth of the sun, but the warmth of Sarah's words as she spoke to us. I'm giving Grandma my graduation cap and stole, because she has graduated from earth to heaven. And Sarah placed the cap and stole on the casket, and we watched as it was lowered with them into the ground. I felt a wave of emotion, but it wasn't really just sadness, it was joy, because my daughter taught me that a temporary dust collecting item can be used to give us a permanent, lasting reminder of love and hope beyond the grave. And in that painting of a life framed by time, the picture is really good.